A man was enjoying a quiet day by the ocean when something beneath the water suddenly grabbed his foot. His scream startled everyone around him, and soon all eyes were fixed on him. What just happened? Welcome to Wonderbot Animals. Francis and a few new friends were relaxing at Cadborough Bay, down on the southern tip of Vancouver Island in Canada, when one of them noticed something odd moving near the shoreline. At first, it didn't seem like a big deal, but as the animal glided closer with surprising speed and grace, concern began to set in. Its dark, sleek coloring reminded them of something dangerous, like a reptile, and for a moment, they feared they were about to witness something scary just feet from where they sat. Francis, closest to the water, had the best view of what was happening. At the same time, one of his companions quickly pulled out her phone to capture the moment, without realizing she was about to film something truly special. The mystery creature moved effortlessly through the water, drifting closer to shore. Francis felt a mix of excitement and worry, unsure what to expect. But as it approached, its true identity became clear. And it wasn't anything frightening at all. In fact, it was something pretty amazing. As the animal came into full view, it became obvious that this wasn't a reptile. It was a sea otter. Its smooth movements and curious behavior had everyone watching in awe. The moment Francis realized what it was, a big smile spread across his face. His companions lit up too. Some even laughed and called out to the sea otter, hoping it might swim up to them. Of course, the otter couldn't understand, but it still felt like a sweet connection. Even with their excitement, no one tried to get too close. They knew sea otters were wild animals and could get defensive if they felt threatened, so they stayed safely on the beach, careful not to disturb it. Still, something unexpected happened. As Francis watched the otter swimming so calmly, he saw something that made him do a double-take. Was it really happening? He took a few small steps into the water, just up to his ankles. Then the otter suddenly disappeared. Feeling a little disappointed, he thought maybe he had scared it off. Just as he was about to step back, a strange feeling crept over him. Something touched his foot, then grabbed hold. Startled, he turned toward the water and yelled out when he saw the otter again, this time gently clinging to his foot, almost like it wanted to play. People around him started shouting, some pulling out their phones, urging him to get back on shore. They were worried the otter might bite or carry some illness. But Francis had a strange sense that the otter meant no harm. In fact, he was almost sure it had come back for him on purpose. As everyone stared in disbelief, Francis started to tell a story that few expected. This wasn't his first time in this exact spot. About a year earlier, he had taken a quiet vacation here, and that trip came with a surprise encounter of its own. Back then, Francis had come across a sea otter family, not in the water, but actually up on the shore. He had quietly watched them from a safe distance. As he pitched his tent near the shoreline for the night, Francis kept an eye on the bay. As evening set in, he saw the otter glide smoothly back into the ocean, blending right in with the waves and shifting tides. It was a beautiful sight, reminding him just how easily sea otters could move between land and water. But once darkness settled over the bay and Francis climbed into his tent, the calm of the evening was suddenly broken. He woke to a loud, strange noise nearby. At first, he figured it might be a bird, or maybe even the same otter making sounds. But it didn't take long for him to realize something else was going on. The noises didn't stop. In fact, they grew louder and more urgent. At first, he brushed them off as typical night sounds, but something about them tugged at him. A growing worry crept in. He couldn't shake the thought that something might be wrong, especially after just seeing how graceful and full of life the otter had been earlier. He tried to go back to sleep, but the cries kept calling out. Each one stirred something deeper in him. Francis began to feel uneasy. What if an animal was hurt? He didn't want to get involved unless it was really necessary. He knew wild animals could be unpredictable. But something about these sounds made it hard to ignore. Finally, he decided he had to check. Grabbing his flashlight, Francis stepped out into the cool night. The moon was full and bright, but he still wanted the extra light just in case. Following the cries, he walked slowly, his senses alert. With every step, it felt more and more like something really was in trouble. After a short walk, he expected to find maybe a bird or another small animal, but the area seemed empty. Still, the sound was clearer now. Climbing up a small wooden watchtower used by bay monitors to observe the beach, he hoped for a better view. The noise grew louder, echoing up through the structure. He swept the area with his flashlight, certain now that the sound was coming from right below him. But he still couldn't see anything. Was his mind playing tricks on him? Then the noise came again, closer this time, and Francis suddenly realized the animal had to be under the tower. He rushed down, and there it was, a young sea otter trapped beneath the lifeguard stand. The beam of his flashlight lit up the small space, and his heart sank. He felt a wave of guilt. He wished he'd come out sooner. Who knew how long the little creature had been stuck there? There wasn't time to waste. Francis knew his first priority was to help free the otter. He guessed it had probably been trying to return to the water to rejoin the others, but had gotten itself wedged between the beams under the structure. Its little cries must have been out of frustration and fear. Without hesitating, Francis moved in. He carefully approached the area, trying not to make too much noise or sudden movements. When he got close, he began shifting some of the wood around, trying to open up a space big enough for the otter to wiggle out. But it wasn't easy. The wood was tight, and the otter was really stuck. Crouching closer, he decided to turn off his flashlight so the light wouldn't scare the already stressed animal. In the dark, he paused for a moment, waiting to see how the otter would react. But the otter stayed still, no growling, no hissing. Francis couldn't tell if it was too tired to react or if it somehow sensed he was there to help. Seeing it stay calm gave Francis a bit of hope. Carefully, he examined the wooden supports, trying to figure out a way to loosen part of the structure. He knew he'd have to work quickly, but gently. Any wrong move could hurt the animal or scare it further. He knew better than to try pulling the otter out by force. It could make things worse. After thinking it through, Francis noticed that part of the wooden beam trapping the otter seemed slightly loose, probably from the animal's own struggle to get free. Spotting an opportunity, he gently grabbed the loosened section and began to work it loose, hoping it would give the otter just enough space to escape. To his surprise, the otter seemed to understand what he was doing. It began squirming and pushing from its side, as if trying to help. Then, with one final pull, the piece of wood came free, and just like that, the otter wriggled out and was no longer stuck. Francis felt a huge wave of relief watching the little animal dash away. Exhausted but happy, he sank into the cool sand, letting the moment sink in. He had done it. On his own, he'd helped free the trapped otter. As the animal took in its new freedom, it paused and sniffed in Francis's direction. It seemed unsure whether to be afraid or curious. Francis stayed where he was, giving the otter space, and gently motioned toward the ocean, encouraging it to return. The otter hesitated for a bit, then slowly made its way toward the bay, clearly eager to find its way back. But just before entering the water, it turned and looked back at Francis, its small figure glowing in the moonlight, then disappeared beneath the surface. Even with everything that had happened, Francis couldn't stop smiling as he walked back to his tent. There was something deeply rewarding about knowing he'd helped. As the early morning light stretched across the sky, he had no doubt this was a story he'd remember for the rest of his life. What Francis didn't know then was that this wouldn't be his last encounter with a sea otter. Now, as he stood with his companions watching the otter move smoothly through the water, he couldn't help but wonder, could it be the same one? Was the otter's playful behavior a sign that it remembered? He wasn't sure, but something inside him told him not to walk away. Sea otters usually keep their distance from people, so getting close was rarely safe or smart. But this one seemed to be seeking something, like it was drawn to him, and Francis couldn't ignore that. Before we continue, go ahead and like this video. Help us hit 15,000 likes and subscribe to the channel. As people gathered around, recording the moment and smiling, no one expected what would happen next. Francis, slowly wading into the shallow water, caught everyone's attention. A quiet buzz of anticipation settled over the group. All eyes were on what might happen next. Then something amazing occurred. In a moment that felt almost unreal, the otter responded, not by running, but by swimming toward Francis. It circled around him, curiously sniffing at his legs and inspecting his clothes like it was trying to recognize him. Instead of retreating, the otter nuzzled closer, gliding gently around him in a way that felt trusting, almost like a quiet hello. The moment was incredible. It wasn't just about nature, it was about connection. Francis stood still, completely caught up in what was happening. Whether this was the same otter or not didn't really matter anymore. He felt something special. Then slowly he leaned forward, reaching out with care as the otter continued to swim around him. The animal seemed curious about his touch, sniffing at his hand, maybe hoping for food, or maybe just soaking in the quiet closeness. This incredible moment between man and otter felt like something out of a dream, a rare glimpse into the peaceful bond that can exist between humans and nature. After enjoying a few more moments of attention and closeness, the otter swam away, only to return once more. It cuddled up to Francis briefly, to the delight of the watching crowd. Then, with one smooth dive, it slipped back into the open water, likely off to hunt for its next meal. As the otter disappeared into the distance, Francis stood there with a strong feeling in his heart. He truly believed this was the same otter he had rescued months earlier. He felt a mix of amazement and quiet gratitude, completely overwhelmed by joy. Turning back toward his companions, he saw their faces lit up with the same wonder he felt. That happiness stayed with him. Francis knew this moment would live in his memory for the rest of his life. His hope for a real connection with a wild animal had come true, in the most unexpected and beautiful way. What he didn't expect, though, was what happened next. His incredible interaction with the otter quickly went viral. The video taken by onlookers spread across the internet, gathering millions of views and shares. Before long, people began to recognize him everywhere as the Otter Man, leading to tons of interview and podcast invitations. In those interviews, people often asked him, "Why approach a wild otter, knowing it could be risky?" Francis always explained that young otters, like the one he met, are often curious and friendly, especially when they feel safe. He made it clear that the otter had been the one to reach out first, and he simply followed its lead, drawn by the rare chance to connect. His story didn't just make him famous, it also shined a light on the challenges sea otters face in the wild. The touching moment between Francis and the otter sparked global interest, encouraging more people to care about these unique marine animals. Support poured into organizations working to protect otters and their habitats, giving a welcome boost to conservation efforts around the world. What an unforgettable story of connection, trust, and the quiet magic that sometimes happens between people and animals. Have you ever had a moment like this with a wild creature? We'd love to hear your story in the comments. And don't forget, hit like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you don't miss more amazing animal encounters. Thanks for watching, and we can't wait to share another story with you soon.